Well, what's up, everybody? I'm Casey, and today I'm up at the house because I have a comfy chair and a table to work at, and I'm working on the gauges out of the Monaco. I found some things to show you, and I'm hoping we can get them working. We'll see. Well, I've started taking this one apart. It's coming apart pretty easy. It's not fighting me much. Have noticed we got some rust and corrosion. Big surprise. The amperage gauge is actually frozen. It won't move. I don't really want to force it. It's rusted. And On these cars, the voltage limiter is actually built in to the temperature gauge. If you can see it, it's in there. If I can get some focus on it, there we go. Get a little light in there. This is more difficult than I thought it would be, but that's the voltage limiter, and it looks like it's gotten hot and burnt. It's probably no good, and it's actually built into the temperature gauge. The later model cars, I'm not sure what year it started. I guess late 70s. They started the voltage limiter become external. I have one right here. Pretty common on a lot of them. My thoughts are to make this voltage limiter work on this gauge setup. Oh, here's the clock. She's crusty and rusty. The knob doesn't turn. It's completely frozen. It'd be nice to make this thing run, even if it's not accurate, but that's not a priority. I really want to get the gauges working. I think I'm going to try to spray this with WD-40 or something to get it freed up. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. And figure out how to wire in a late model voltage limiter and not use this one in the gauge. This is first for me. All the ones I've ever worked on had the external voltage limiter. I haven't actually messed with one of these that's built into the gauges before, but I don't see any reason why we can't make this work. And actually, this voltage limiter here was one that had failed in pretty good shape, but it turned out it was just through the little ground wire. Let's see if we can take this out so you can see it. There we go. There it is, and there's that one. Now, if you didn't know, what the voltage limiter does is it has these contacts right there, and this metal is a bimetal deal, and as this wire warms up, it causes the metal to deform, and it opens the contact, so it just pretty much flashes on and off, on and off, on and off, and that's where you get the signal voltage, or reference voltage, I guess, for your oil pressure gauge, temperature gauge, fuel level gauge, which this thing doesn't have an oil pressure gauge. It only has temperature and fuel. And there's a wire that goes from one gauge over to the other gauge so that the fuel gauge gets its signal from the limiter. I found that in the schematic. So, I guess let's see what we can figure out here. Maybe I'll set up a little demonstration so you can see this limiter working. Pretty cool old technology, real simple, and it works. So, the reason why this voltage limiter wasn't working is, see this tiny little ground wire right here. Something to point. That little wire right there grounds to the case so that this lead here can send ground to this wire. Well, anyway, that wire wasn't making contact with the case, and it didn't work. But the limiter itself is in great shape, and it works. And I'm just going to fix the ground, and hopefully we'll be able to use this to make these gauges work. That's the plan. All right, we're a little further in. I got the amperage gauge out and got the printed circuit board off the back of it. This can be a lot of problems right here because you'll get corrosion on these clean surfaces, especially for the lights. So we'll go through with some fine Scotch-Brite and shine all that up. Also, the screws that actually mount this to the back of the gauge assembly, several of them are actually grounds. They get their ground, to the housing through those screw heads, and again, you'll have corrosion issues. There's one, and look how bad, how nasty that one right there is. Which that actually goes to the amperage gauge. Both of those are nicely corroded. So we'll clean all that up. Got the amperage gauge out, put a little WD-40 on it, and worked it just a little, and she's back to life. moving like it should. So hopefully it works. You know, she's a little crusty looking in there, but don't know if that'll have any effect on it working or not working. That's no good, is it? So, if you do this, I recommend taking some pictures as you go. Fortunately, I have a video of this, so shouldn't be any problem to put back together. Hopefully, things will work when it goes back together. Let's move on to the temperature gauge and voltage limiter issue. See what we can figure out. Alright, I've got our voltage limiter set up here so we can do, I guess, some kind of demonstration and see what it does. The test light there represents what the voltage limiter is doing. So all I have to do is ground the small wire here, get a good shot of the contacts. Can't see it, but that contact is opening and closing a really small amount, causing that light to flash. That's all it does. That flashing signal to the gauges is what makes the gauges work. The needle kind of finds the equilibrium, you know, based on the amount of ground that it's getting from the sending unit versus the amount of power the voltage limiter is letting it have. And that's what positions the gauge. You know, don't know if that makes any sense. But this limiter is working. So I'm hoping we can put this to use fixing our Monaco gauges. And with no power on it, the contact just stays shut, light stays burning. And that's pretty much it. Exciting stuff, huh? Well, I thought before I went too far with this gauge, I should make sure that the gauge itself works. Put power to the post on the back and it didn't do anything. And then I found that this little tiny heater wire for the bimetal doohickey had come loose, thanks to corrosion. But anyway, if I apply power directly to this wire, the gauge works. So, other than it being complete garbage, it does work. So, not all hope is lost. It's slowly falling back down. I guess we'll just keep on trying to make treasure out of trash. All hope is not lost. I think to get better access to the guts, I'm going to take the face of the gauge off. It's just held on by a couple of tiny rivets that are now green. Probably won't take much. I'm going to take a tiny drill bit and drill those rivets. Well, I got the face of the gauge off. That was pretty easy. Those rivets were made of like brass. They drilled nice and easy and came out. This is the wire here in question, and it used to be connected right here to this rusty surface. It was held on with that, which isn't solder. I don't know what it is. It's like some sort of epoxy or glue. There's more of it in here holding this wire. It doesn't seem like it's going to come off. I don't guess. But anyway, I'm thinking I might be able to connect that wire to any part of this old voltage limiter. I can find a clean spot on it all the way up to the contact point even, and not have to get in there and clean that, because that's not an easy place to access, and you can't really take this thing apart. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. If you didn't know how these work, is this metal here, this piece of metal that this wire is wrapped around, is they call it a bimetal strip, and one side is a different type of metal than the other side. And when this wire warms it up, one side reacts differently to the heat than the other and causes it to deform and move like that. And of course, the more heat the wire produces, the further it'll move the needle. kind of interesting. So, see what we can figure out. Okay, well, I've got this all rigged up. I removed the voltage limiter from inside the housing and have the gauge actually wired up to where it belongs. I just took that one wire and connected it over there with some, just twisted around that post. I took a little bit of copper wire and kept repeatedly threading it through the hole and tying it down, and it works. It works great. So this is basically ready to reinstall, even though it's crusty looking. There's not a whole lot I can do since it's sort of delicate, but at this point it can be installed and everything can be connected from the back. I labeled these. This is ignition. This is the signal after the voltage limiter. This is where you're getting that pulsing signal. And this is the sending unit. The water temperature sending unit connects here. So it will work. It does work. I tested it again, so I feel good about that. I put our amperage gauge over here. I wanted to see if it actually works. I mean, if it doesn't work, then it will just go back in the car dead. But it does work. I just can quickly short directly across it. I don't have anything to draw enough of a load to really, make it stay in position, but I can just sort of quickly, there you go, see that? So the amperage gauge works. That's awesome. Now if we can get the fuel gauge to work, man, we'll be doing good. Well, I need to put the face back on the gauge, which is going to require some tiny screws. These were riveted in. I don't have any rivets that small. That hole is really small, like a 16th inch. So I probably have some small screws down at the garage. I'm up at the house and I'm in socks, so I'm not doing that tonight. I think what I will do is start cleaning up the circuit board, getting all these contacts nice and shiny, because I'm not far from being able to start reassembling this. Just a matter of making things pretty, and we'll start putting it back together. So let's get this cleaned up. I got some 320 sandpaper I'm going to use to shine this stuff up, and we'll see what happens. Just a matter of making it shine. Take your time. Get these nice and clean where the screws go through and everything, because that screw up there actually grounds this side of the light. These lights use these little tabs, and they go in, and if you'll see all these tab on each side here and here makes contact on these, and that's how the light gets its power. This is a common issue. So you get all this stuff clean, get these tabs clean. You can do that with sandpaper as well. Get them shiny, and then you can even go through and spring these up a little bit. That way they get a little bit more tension against the circuit board. Also, obviously, we got corrosion. We need to clean the inside of it. And I might take these down to the garage and lightly blast inside these with a sandblaster to get that nice green stuff out of there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but she's corroded. You can get these new, but these are fine. They'll clean up. So spend a little time and get it right. That way we don't have to revisit this in the future, because it can be a problem. You'll have lights that temporarily don't work, and they'll start working again, or they don't work and you take and pound the dash with your fist and they come on. This is the problem. I won't bore you anymore with this. Well, there's you a little bit of a before and after. I mean, there's no way that this gauge could have worked through this. This one's obviously I've cleaned up. These nasty. This is actually where the temperature gauge makes its contact to the circuit board, and that's miserable. That's just not going to work. And matter of fact, the fuel gauge in my Belvedere occasionally it doesn't work, and I'll just whack the dash and it'll start working, and it's because of these. I actually recently went up under the dash and loosened these nuts and tightened them a couple of times to get a new surface, and it's been working ever since. You can and should put some dielectric grease on all these surfaces, and that'll help hold corrosion down. I'm gonna keep cleaning, I guess. Oh, and I discovered that using this razor blade works pretty nice to scrape this crap out of here. Obviously, I can't hold it because I only got one hand, but I'm having better luck with that than I am the sandpaper. So I'll go through and I'll scrape it with a razor blade and get it nice and clean. Then I'll go back to the sandpaper and kind of put a polish on it, I guess you could call it. I don't know, I just thought I'd tell you that. So nasty. It's crazy the amount of stuff that's built up on there. Sandpaper wasn't even touching this. On these were just so thick with crustaceans and stalactites and barnacles. Razor blade makes pretty quick work of it. Cleaner the better. I mean, that doesn't have to be dead perfect. But I don't want to have problems. Once I put this back together, put it in the car, I just want it to work. I want to know what the engine temperature is. It's kind of important. I want to know how much gas is in the tank. I want to know if the battery's charging, if the charging system's working. And that's about it. Speedometer's optional. Don't really have to have that, but I hope I can get it to work too. Car's going to be geared 391. It's going to be a little bit hard to speed in it. It might not stay geared 391. I haven't decided on that. We're going to play with it, and it might get back to a 276. I don't know. I mean, the one that's in the car is wasn't any good because of the rust on it, but I think I have another one somewhere. Now I'm just yakking. And that's probably acceptable. Alright, I've got these surfaces as clean as they need to be. I also, while I was at it, I shined up those pins. This can be another problem. These pins, they also make a connection to the circuit board. They're actually just put in there and folded over, and if you notice this one, it's missing these little folded over tabs, so which means this pin could likely come loose, and if it does, this light's not going to work. I don't know what that light's for. Probably a backlight. I want it to work, so I'm going to figure out something on that. And this is a problem on the other gauge cluster. If you notice, these are all four broken off. So I got to figure that out. Those pins are actually still in the connector on the car. I just left them so I can keep up with them while I come up with a solution. I don't know. This is part of the fun. You get to figure this stuff out. Well, the inside of pretty much all these old gauge clusters, if you notice, is painted white. These are the backlights. That white paint allows that light to, reflect around to the front of the gauges. That's what gives it that nice soft glow. So if the inside of yours, the paint doesn't look that good, or if you just want your gauges to be even brighter, you can go through and repaint the inside of these with some, brilliant white paint, and it'll actually make the gauge cluster brighter. The paint they use is a little bit of an off-white, kind of an antique white. But if you go through and paint this stuff, brilliant white, kind of a matte or satin finish seems to work the best. It'll make your gauges even brighter. I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to clean it up, wipe all this stuff down. Got a little bit of corrosion right there. We'll just fix that. like new. Got the same paint on the back of this, which is just as important because the light will reflect off of this onto the face of the gauges. So this is might even be more important than the paint inside there. I want to clean the lens up. The lens goes all the way around, so I can't get to the lens behind here. So I think I'm going to take this on apart so that I can get the lens nice and clean. And it's held together with these plastic melted over rivets. So we'll just go through and we'll pop them off. We can get this apart, clean it up, and then we can just reassemble this with glue of some sort. Probably just use a dab of hot glue on each one of these areas and mash it back together, and it should be nice and clean. It's pretty funky. If it didn't look so bad, I wouldn't do it, but I want it clean. Look how the white in the letters is like running over. Should clean it pretty nice. Well, I got rid of those. I just used this flathead screwdriver that I sharpened a while back, which happens to be very handy. If you don't have a sharpened flathead screwdriver, you need to get one and sharpen it because it's very useful. Anyway, I just went through and those little plastic turds just popped right off. Oh, and I made a mark here so that I get this clocked properly when I put it back on. It might be important. Well, here's the plan. I have this circuit board out of a 70s A-body dash, I'm pretty sure. And I went in here and bent the little tabs back and was able to pull the pin out. There it is. And I'm hoping we can use the pin. See, it still has the tabs intact, so we should be able to put it back in the circuit board, fold the tabs back out, and repair not only this one that the tabs are completely gone off of. I'm afraid that pin's going to fall out and cause problems, but we'll also be able to replace all of these broken ones. That's the plan. Will it work? I don't know. This is I haven't tried this before. I feel pretty good about it though. Well, I tried to just grab a hold of this pin and just pull it out. I figured it would just pop out of there, but it's actually in there tight. I tugged on it pretty hard and it's not moving. So I think I'm just going to leave it. And we'll concentrate our efforts on the pin situation of this cluster here. Once we get that far, I want to go as far as I can with this first gauge cluster before I tear into the second one. But that'll be the plan for fixing it, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Well, we're starting to reassemble everything. Got the circuit board back in and all the screws. Took all my hardware down to the garage and buzzed it on the wire brush. Bench grinder deal. Got the crust off. Everything is getting dielectric grease. All the grounds, everything is going to get it. So maybe it won't corrode. Let's keep going. Reattach the face of the temperature gauge with a couple of screws. That's how it'll work. Well, here's where I'm at. I have the voltage limiter wired into here. This is the pulse signal. This is where your flashing light wire is. So it'll be getting pulse signal to the temperature gauge. And it'll also travel through this lead back into this pin through the wiring harness to the fuel gauge, so it'll also get the pulse. I just took and bent this leg over. It was here beside the voltage limiter. I've been over this way. I'm going to drill a hole in it, cut most of it off, and then we will put it under a screw so it can get a ground. We'll get a ground and mount it all at the same time. Drill's down at the garage, so that's not going to happen tonight. But I think I'm going to make sure that all my lights are working and clean, and we can put them back in. We have backlights. Turn signal indicator. Low oil pressure. Sweet. That's all the lights. Functioning temperature hand. There's normal. And we're seeing the amp meter move when it was out on the bench. So I don't really like dead shorting it. So we're just gonna call it good. That's everything except for the clock. I haven't torn into it yet. Progress. Well, I opened up the clock. Anybody surprised? I can't say I am. It reminds me of that device that they found at the bottom of the ocean that nobody knows what it does. I don't know the name of it. I guess, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do here. It may just get an oil pressure gauge in place of the clock. And of course I would do it in a way that, you know, if a clock were to be found for it, you could just easily replace it with, so no modifications, just some sort of way of putting an oil pressure gauge in there. I don't know. I still kind of want to play with it. Probably no hope, but who knows? Well, I think we've gone as far as we can on this instrument cluster until we decide what's going to happen as far as the clock / oil pressure gauge goes. And I believe I'm going to see if I can gussy this up and repaint this. I got some of that Mexican chrome spray paint, and I'm hoping I can make this look a little better. We'll see. So let's move on to this. I done pulled the screws that hold the bezel out, or hold the bezel in, and we're in. Well, look at there. Well, that fuel gauge wasn't going to work. That's the same deal on the like the voltage limiter had, where you got this weird. It's not solder, but it's some sort of epoxy that holds the wire, I guess, to here. Yeah, right there you can see it rusty patch. We can fix that. So hopefully we'll get this fuel gauge up and running. And let's get the speedometer out and see if it's free. I'm kind of suspicious that it's stuck because the speedometer cable broke. That happened when I initially pulled the car out of its grave. And I think that's because the speedometer stuck and it just twisted the end of the cable off at the transmission. Well, let's keep tearing it apart. Alright, I got this circuit board off without too much effort. I thought this was interesting. It has pins on this side of the circuit board that plug into those connections there, and those are for the fuel gauge. That's how the fuel gauge gets its information, power, all that good stuff. I believe the corrosion on this side is worse, based on the circuit board, and the lights are much more crusty than the other side. But I think we can fix it. Crusty. Crusty. And less crusty. Let's keep tearing in. We'll do the same deal with the circuit board as we did on the other one and clean it up. And I have to fix these pins. That should be interesting, but I think we can do it. There are several levels of nastiness inside there. It looks like there was a pool in there at one point. This side does seem to be more corroded than the other side. Got this side, it was just held in by 2 screws on each side of that. And the speedometer is in fact stuck. You can see this makes the needle move, and it's kind of stiff feeling. But it's this part right here, it flies around this aluminum drum and causes it to move through magnetism of some sort. Uses the whole, magnetism and aluminum. What do you call that? The Lenz's law or something? I don't know. But it's really stuck. So we're going to throw some WD-40 at it, see if it'll free up. And this shouldn't be too awful bad to bring back to life, I hope. She definitely got some rust on her. I'll do what I can, but that's all we can do. Well, we got it wired up. A little bit of a little riggery going on here. But see if we got a functioning gauge now. Oh yeah. Just trying to just gently pulse power to it. See if we can get it all the way to full. Yep. What a winner. That is a functioning fuel gauge. And a functioning speedometer. Looks kind of crappy, but it works. Alright. Well, back to the clock. Here's what I'm thinking. We've got this oil pressure gauge. And we can do something like that. That would be pretty slick. I could even put the little, alright, I got it right here. Little clock adjuster, put it back where it belongs, just to make it even more incognito. Maybe kind of move it down so you can see the numbers a little better. I don't know. I like it. I like to do this in a way that doesn't damage or affect any of the original parts. So if one day somebody wanted to put a clock back in, it would just be a matter of taking this out and put the clock back in. I'm going to have enough real estate inside the gauge cluster for this. We got some things to work out. But overall, kind of liking this. So we'll have a gauge and a light. Oh yeah. Well, here's what I've done. I took the guts out of the gauge to streamline things and make it smaller. It will go right there, and it will also, we'll use the backlight from the factory gauges to light this gauge rather than the light that would be in here, because it would look different. Not that big a deal, but we needed to take this out to make room. And I think I'm going to use the back off the old clock, flip it upside down like this. I'll be drilling a hole in it for this to come through this, and then we can screw the nut back on there wherever it's at. There it is. And that will hold the gauge in this. Of course, we'll have to put this in so that it works and this hole comes through in a decent spot. And that'll be it. That should work. Well, there it is. That'll work, and then the factory backlight can come through and light it up. Kind of hard to see there. Turn that light off. There it is, my flashlight. There it is. That'll work. Pretty happy with that, I think. Now we just need to clean it up and make all this other stuff pretty. That means everything works. Everything works. All the gauges, all the lights, the speedometer. We went from nothing working to everything working. Now we just gotta put it all together. I think I'm gonna try to repaint this fake chrome on here. I've got this stuff. I don't know how it's gonna turn out. It may look terrible, but it'll probably look better than the yellow plastic showing through. I don't know. I'll probably do some testing on another material and just see what it looks like. But I'm sure it'll be nice for that to look a little better. I don't know. I haven't decided. Well, I've moved on to the crusty broken pin circuit board. I was able to extract the broken pins. And then I was also able to extract some donor pins from our donor circuit board. So hopefully we can install these in here and it work. We're going to find out. Wow, I think I have impressed myself with this deal. This worked out really good. Look at that. Like it never even happened. I was able to get the broken pins out with a small drill bit, and they just fell out of there after I drilled them a little bit. Stuck these in, and I started by where's it at? Sticking the end of my test light in them, and that swelled them out some. And then I stepped up to a Phillips screwdriver, since it's got 4 sides and so does the connector. I just gave that a nice push, spread them a little more, and then I took my pliers / hammer and I just tap, 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 kind of tapped around one by one, and there they are. And they're nice and tight. This is a good fix. If you ever have this problem, this works. Oh yeah. Okay, well, I've taken all this stuff back apart again. I took all this in the kitchen and washed it really good in Dawn. I'm going to mask up all the black and See if I can make it look less crappy with my Mexican chrome spray paint. I'm gonna finish washing my lenses up. I washed this one up when I did that one. Turned out pretty good, pretty clear, acceptable. This one still needs to be washed up, kind of dingy, and so does our clock face. So we'll get that cleaned up, tape up this stuff and paint it. While that stuff is drying, I'm going to, I had this planned out. I was going to do something while that paint's drying. I forgot what it was. Well, we've hit a speed bump. For one, my microphone died, so we're using the phone mic. Big deal. Two, the tape is going to pull the black paint off. I didn't really want to paint the black, but I guess I'm going to have to. But we're turning chicken salad into chicken shit. Wait, I said that backwards. We're turning chicken shit into chicken salad. So I'm kind of scared to just paint black over top of that because it pulls off awful easy. See, look, it's stuck to the tape. Not too good. So if I were to just paint right on top of that black paint, let the paint cure, then tape off the black paint so that I can paint the silver paint, is the tape still going to pull the black paint off because the black paint is on top of the shitty black paint? So do I go through and remove this first? Wasn't wanting to go that far with this. I don't know, I got some thinking to do. Well, I got them all sandblasted up, and I took and scrubbed them in Dawn twice. I put these in a piece of cardboard so I could actually paint them. Just stuck the screws through. So we got them in the old paint booth / laser. Let's throw some paint on them. Well, we got the black down. We'll let that dry. We'll see if we need another coat on it. Might not. Let's see. Well, about 24 hours has passed. I let the black cure nicely, and then I taped everything up and hit it with the silver, the chrome. It's supposed to be, but it's obviously just going to be silver. That's okay. It's still going to look pretty decent. I'm going to let this flash for probably 20 minutes, and I think I'm going to hit it with another coat because it's a little splotchy in places. Overall, I'm relatively happy with it. Yeah, it's not chrome, but you know, whatever. It's not great, but it's good, and I'm good with good. Well, the gauges are back in the car. I've made everything work by grounding wires, and I have not grounded the wire for the fuel gauge yet, so I haven't actually seen it move. And I haven't seen the speedometer work because the speedometer cable's bad, but I feel pretty confident that they're going to. Nevertheless, we have moved on to other things. Well, that took too long. In case you were wondering, that whole gauge fiasco that you just seen took nearly a month. 30 minutes here, hour there. I got almost a month of just a little bit of time here, a little bit of time there, fixing them gauges. Thought you might want to know. Well, we got her done, got the gauges back in it, got them working. I feel pretty good about them. All the lights work. I think everything's going to work fine. Like I said, I haven't seen the speedometer work yet, and I haven't seen the fuel gauge work yet, but I feel like they're going to. They worked on the bench, so there's no reason they shouldn't work in the car. I just don't think there's enough gas in the tank to move the needle. I put 5 gallons in it back when I first started the car, and I haven't put any in it since. And those aftermarket sending units can be a little funny. As I've had to go in and play with them and bend the arm to get the level in the tank to match what it's showing on the gauge. They're just a little funny. They don't usually register exactly right, so that's something to play with in the future. We've moved on to other things. Starting to pull the AC box out of it. It's a disaster. Anyway, that'll be in the next video. Appreciate y'all watching. Come back and see me. I know this video is kind of a little on the boring side, so you know, it's for the people that want to see it. It's there. Anyway, come back and see me. I think I found it. Yeah, there it is.